Hi everyone, welcome back to Lifting the Lamp. I'm Frater Eleftheria, and in this video I'm going to be talking about Enochian magic again. This is kind of like a follow-up to my last video on Enochian magic, where I discussed the various symbols of the Sigillum Dei Aemeth. Now, there was one key aspect of the Sigillum Dei Aemeth that I didn't talk about the last time due to its complexity, and that is the circumference. This bit here with the numbers and letters around the outside, because the way that you derive the various names of God that are hidden within this circumference is quite involved. But that's what I'm going to explain today. And in the process, I'm going to reveal a few other hidden mysteries about the Enochian system of magic that we can find within this sigillum, one of which has never been revealed before, and one of which is revealed in only a few places. So, with that in mind, let's have a look at the circumference of the Sigillum Dei Aemeth and the secrets that are hidden within. So in my last video, which I'll link in the description below, I talked about how the layers of the Sigillum Dei Aemeth, like a series of concentric circles from the middle outward, talk about successive hierarchies of angelic beings, with the outermost layer or circumference of the diagram representing the very highest entities. And these are what are called the sevenfold names of God. And those seven highest names, which govern the rest of the Enochian universe divided into seven, are what are hidden within this circumference of the sigillum. John Dee was a spy. He was a master cryptographer. And we see Dee's work as a cryptographer perhaps shining through in the way that the circumference of the sigillum is set up. What we have here is a classic cipher. What I've put on the board here replicates exactly what is around the outside of the sigillum here. And with this cipher, by following a set of a few basic instructions, you can derive the names of the seven highest beings of the sigillum from the cipher. And I'm going to demonstrate that to you today. So basically, the few rules are, you've got these panels here around the circumference. You'll notice that some of them have got a number above a letter. Some of them have got a letter above a number. So if you have a panel where you have a number that appears above a letter, such as here, what that indicates is that you're supposed to count in a clockwise direction. The number that appears in the panel is the number of panels that you count in a clockwise direction. If the number appears underneath a letter, you're supposed to do the same process but in a counterclockwise direction. And there's a few other rules to the cipher. One is that if you see a capital letter, it indicates the beginning of a sentence or the beginning of a name. If you see a lowercase letter, it's part of the name. If you see a lowercase letter without a number, it indicates the end of a name. And then the other rule that is followed here is that if there is a repetition of the same vowel twice in a row, one of the vowels is removed from the name. Okay, so we have a situation where we've got these seven God names. Each one of the names has its own seal or symbol, indicated by these seven symbols here. And I've indicated on the diagram here where their name begins to be traced on the circumference. And what I'm going to do now is, following the few basic rules for deciphering the circumference and the names of the circumference, I'm going to show you how to derive each of these seven names. Starting with the first one, which is the name Gallus, which corresponds to this symbol here. Okay, so Gallus, the name Gallus begins to be traced here. We see that there is a capital letter G with a number 9 on the top of it. So what that means is we need to trace in a clockwise direction 9 times from G to get the next letter. And now what we see is that we've got a panel with a number 6 at the top, indicating from A we trace 6 more in a clockwise direction to arrive at the next number and the next letter, giving us the L. Now we have a number 8 under the L, which indicates tracing a path in the opposite direction to reach the next letter. We again have an A, and an A with a number 20 above it, indicating that we trace again in a clockwise direction through the diagram 20 panels to arrive at the next letter. And it's another letter A, but you remember from the rules of the cipher that 2 vowels in a row means that one is redundant, so we have only one A. But we have a new panel telling us to count 8 times in a clockwise direction for the next letter. And as a result, we arrive at the letter S, which has no number, indicating this is the end of the first name. And so that is how we get Gallus as the first of the 7 names. Now that I've demonstrated the process for one name, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to trace the other names. I might just speed up the footage so we're not here all day to show you which of the panels are crossed off as we trace each of the 7 names corresponding to these 7 symbols here. You'll notice with the second name, Gethog, the final letter is in fact 2 letters, OG next to each other. Next we have to trace the name for this symbol here, the L. The next name is Thaoth. This is a bit different because one of the letters in the name that was traced was a capital letter that wasn't a beginning letter, but in this case it was a second A, so it needed to be removed anyway, as reflected in the name that appears here. Now on to the next name. Okay, now we have the next name, Horlun. There's something interesting about this name that you might have noticed, is that one of the letters is in fact a Greek letter. Some people think it's W, it's actually not. It's the lowercase version of the Greek letter omega, which of course is the last Greek letter of the Greek alphabet. I'm not exactly sure why that has been chosen as one of the letters in the name, but perhaps it has something to do with the alpha and the omega. The alpha, which is just the normal Latin letter A, also appears in this circumference, so maybe that is a little homage to that title of the Most High. Alright, we've got 3 names left. Inon. The next name is Aoth, which you'll notice is just a repetition of part of a previous name that we traced, Thaoth. And you can see that reflected in the fact that these panels have been crossed off twice. Okay, let's continue with the last of the most well-known and well-established of the names that are contained in this circumference, 7th of 7. And we have the final name, Galathog. Again, some of the panels that had already been crossed off have been crossed off again, as we overlap with the previous name, Gethog. And again, the single panel with 2 letters OG has been used again. So there are only 7 names of the circumference corresponding to one of each of these 7 symbols. And we've deciphered all of them now, but you'll notice something peculiar. There are a few panels that have not yet been crossed off. And the reason why these particular panels have not been crossed off is because there is actually an 8th secret name that is not discussed openly in Dee's journals, that is encrypted within these panels. And there's very few places that actually talk about this, but the work of Aaron Leach is by far the most comprehensive. It was Leach's work that first drew this hidden name to my attention, or the fact that it was hidden within the Sigillum. And once I learnt this information, I decided to take what I had learnt about how the names are hidden and try and figure it out for myself, with a couple of other bits of much needed information provided by Leach. The first bit of information that is crucial is that this panel here, the letter Y with a number 15 underneath it, is actually transcribed incorrectly in a lot of versions of the Sigillum as being Y14, and that is something which has served as a barrier in being able to decipher the 8th name. The other thing that is important to note is that this panel here, the capital A marking the beginning of the word with a number 6 appearing above it, is actually incomplete. And this is interesting because in Dee and Kelly's communications with the angels, the Archangel Michael appeared and actually changed the content of this particular panel. It used to be an A with 3 6s, as in 666, and Michael actually altered the panel so that there was only a singular 6. And we learn elsewhere in Dee's journals that unlike every other panel which has a number appearing above it, this is actually supposed to be traced in a counterclockwise direction. Perhaps one of the 6s appearing below the letter in its original form indicated a counterclockwise direction for tracing. So there have been several attempts, both intentional and unintentional, by the angels and by some other mysterious reason to actually cover up this hidden 8th name and obscure it from being discovered. But now, with the work of the scholarship of people like Leach, we can uncover it again. And so with these basic rules, as I've just explained, I decided to try and discover the name for myself, and I'm going to show you what I found. So the first capital letter, the first letter that appears in the name, as I've said, is the letter A. And as I've said, the journals of John Dee indicate that we're to trace this in a counterclockwise direction. That gives us a letter B accompanied by the number 10, indicating that we need to count 10 in a clockwise direction to arrive at the next letter. That gives us O and the next letter 17 anti-clockwise. R and the next letter 13 clockwise. Which brings us back to the first letter, the capital A. And so basically what we have here is an infinite recurrence of these 4 letters, A, B, O, R, A, B, O, R, A, B, O, R. What that indicates is that the first portion of the name is these 4 letters. The letter R is the last letter in that portion of the name before it just starts repeating itself. But there are still 4 letters remaining of this name. And the way to derive the second part of the name is by starting at one of the letters that appears in the middle of the name and following the cipher until we reach a final letter. And in order to do that, we need to begin at this Y, which was previously shown as 14 but actually 15, and then follow the instructions of the cipher. So I'll do that now. 15 anti-clockwise for the next letter, 6 clockwise for the next letter, 18 clockwise for the next letter, and we arrive at N, which is a final letter. So what we have here is really one name split into 2, and in order to complete the process, we need to unite the 2 halves to arrive at the final name, which is Aborimon. Once I had discovered this name for myself, using the cipher of the circumference, I wanted to corroborate my results. So I looked at Aaron Leach's own scholarship on this issue, and he agrees with me that the name is Aborimon. There are some other sources that have some different theories, but I think that by far the most persuasive argument is that this is the name Aborimon that is hidden within the circumference. So this all begs the question, why was the name Aborimon so hidden away, with the Archangel Michael going so far as to remove some of the meaning of one of the panels in order to obscure the ability for us to discover this name? By looking at what we know about the Enochian system and some of the symbolism that can be associated from this name, just by looking at what's on the board, we can get a hint. The first thing to consider is that the first letter of this name is associated with the number 666, the number of the beast, a symbol of the end times. And the other thing to consider as well is that this name appears outside of the system of 7, we have everything ordered and structured in a very neat fashion in a sevenfold division, and then we have this eighth outlier. And there are other parts of the Enochian system where it's very ordered and structured, and then there's this outlier, which represents chaos and disorder, and perhaps the lower forces under the command of God being unleashed into the world in some way. And we see this again with the 49 tables of the Book of Loagaeth. The first 48 are to do with different levels of the heaven, and the final 49th is a disordered chaos which concerns the end times, which concerns the destruction of the world. So too does the 92nd name of the Great Table, the 92nd part of the earth, Para-Owan, which unleashes a great fire from within the earth. And so, coupled with all of this and the end time symbology of the number 666, we might suppose that the name Aborimon is also associated with the end times. It is associated with the forces of chaos, though under the command of God, unleashed at the end as part of the end times process, which explains why the name was hidden, because the name of this particular angel or heavenly being needed to be concealed until the appointed time of the end before it could be revealed again, which suggests that we're living in such times now. But this name is still very unknown. If you type Aborimon into a Google search engine, there's only 2 results, and both of them are articles written by Aaron Leach on the topic of this name. So it's still a very unknown mystery of the Sigillum Dei Aemeth. Leach has also suggested in his own work that there is a connection between Aborimon and the angel called Abaddon or Apollyon, who appears in the Book of Revelation as the angel who unleashes God's judgment on the world in the last days. And perhaps there's some truth to that. There's certainly an etymological similarity between Aborimon on the one hand and Abaddon and Apollyon on the other. I'd like to show you one last secret of the circumference, which, so far as I know, nobody else has stumbled across yet, but I'm very eager to share it with you. Now watch this. This is very cool. So we've established that there's 8, not 7 names that are contained within the circumference, but there's only 7 symbols up here. So what happens if we add an extra A to account for the 8th name? Here's an extra A to represent Aborimon with the little 666 that appears in Aborimon's panel, in stark contrast to the other symbols which all have a little cross. Now this sequence of letters is actually an anagram of another word that is very important that appears in the Enochian system, which I'll demonstrate now. This is the Enochian word Loga, spelt Loagaeth, but this word is actually the name of the book that is received, the series of 49 tables that were given to Dee and Kelly in their angelic communications. The Book of Loagaeth is a holy book. It is one final revelation that is given back to humanity in the end times, which restores the knowledge that was given to Enoch. The Book of Loagaeth is considered to be identical with the book that Enoch wrote in heaven after his communications with the angels that he had after he ascended into heaven. It is identical with the Book of Life, which appears in the Book of Revelation as the Book of 7 Seals that is opened by the Lamb. Now, we have here 7 symbols that are established within the Enochian system. They are in fact seals of God names of celestial entities, so they can be regarded as 7 seals. And what this anagram proves to me is that these are the 7 seals of the apocalypse. They are the 7 seals of the scroll that is given to the Lamb. The Book of Life that is to be opened, the Book of Enoch, which is identical with the Book of Loagaeth. And Leach kind of makes an allusion to this fact in his Essential Enochian Grimoire, one of his diagrams, that these 7 symbols might in fact be identical with the 7 seals of the Apocalypse. And I think the fact that together with the A for Aborimon, they spell out the name of that book that is sealed, just proves that. We have in the Book of Loagaeth 49 tables whose mysteries are opened up by 49 calls. 49 is 7 times 7, a sevenfold mystery. We have 7 seals of the Book of Life that are opened by the Lamb. Again, a repetition of the number 7. 7 seals, 7 by 7 gates, 7 by 7 tables. And so once again, all of this proves that the Enochian system is fundamentally tied with the end times, that the Book of Loagaeth is a book of sevenfold division, sevenfold government of the universe, which is also reflected in these 7 beings that are hidden within the Sigillum Dei Aemeth. There is an 8th, which represents the chaos and destruction that is visited upon the world in the last days, and which occurs with the opening of the 7 seals of the Book of Life, which is connected to the opening of the 7 by 7 gates of the Book of Life in the form of the Book of Loagaeth, whose mysteries are unveiled by the opening of those gates. So it's all a very neat concordance, and it's all hidden within this symbol. And we haven't really realized the full significance of all the information that is encoded in the Sigillum Dei Aemeth. And I hope that what I have done today has revealed some things that previously went unrevealed. And how lucky we are to be living at this, the end of the age, when such mysteries can at last be revealed. And I hope that you've enjoyed going on this decryption journey with me. If you did, please leave a like on this video, subscribe to my channel to support my work, subscribe to me on Odyssey, and if you have any comments, leave them down below. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.